Tonight on First at 9, this Wednesday the 28th of August 2024. Climate savvy energy. First phase of Sri Lanka's first ever LNG based power plant, Sobadanavi, declared open. Project expected to add 350 megawatts to the national grid upon completion. Compromise. Sri Lanka has reached an agreement with the IMF to amend the payee tax, reveals the president. No interference. Sri Lanka will not accept UNHRC resolution regarding alleged human rights violations during the civil conflict, assures Foreign Minister Ali Sabri. Criticizes Western powers altering foreign policies to secure votes from Sri Lankan diasporas. Election promises. SJB presidential candidate Sajith Premadasa vows to introduce a new price formula for paddy farmers. SLPP candidate Namal Rajapaksa stresses the need for bearable taxes. NPP's Anurakumara Dissanayake promises a 10,000 rupee monthly allowance for low-income families until the economy achieves stability.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is Derana First at 9, live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of Derana First at 9. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and from around the world. In your top story this evening, President Ranil Wickremesinghe revealed that an agreement has been reached with the International Monetary Fund to amend the current payee tax. He made this announcement while attending an election rally of the Sri Lanka Can Initiative in Ahaliagoda today.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa successfully diffused the flames of a civil conflict that lasted for 30 years. However, within a month or two following the economic crisis, new conflicts arose as people queued for basic necessities. Just as we express our gratitude to former President Mahinda Rajapaksa for ending the war, we must also show our appreciation to President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Today we all stand on the same stage because we made the decision to come together to safeguard the country. Unfortunately, my friends Anurakumara Dissanayake and Sajith Premadasa, along with the SJB, chose not to join us. This highlights the difference between them and us. We are patriotic and loyal not only to our party but also to our country. We made the decision not to lay off any state employees or impose salary cuts. Initially, I managed with only $76 billion and after it increased to $84 billion, we began providing relief. The next question concerns the payee tax. We have reached preliminary agreements with the IMF to amend it. Once we finalize the agreement, we will announce the details. Additionally, we intend to offer more tax relief. All of this will be unveiled in my election manifesto tomorrow.
Horizon Campus 2024 Intake 2. Register now.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Jana Balavege led Samagijana Sandhane, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa assures to implement a new price formula beneficial for both farmers and consumers following his election to the presidency. The opposition leader made these remarks while addressing an election rally in Vallavaya.
The JVP unveiled their manifesto yesterday. NPP members, including Anurakumara Dissanayake, were nowhere to be seen on the day the proposal to drive out the corrupt Council of Sri Lanka Cricket was presented to the Parliament. However, in their manifesto, they have proposed to reform Sri Lanka Cricket. If Anura comes into power, he will only continue Ranil Wickremesinghe's program. Therefore, I request everyone to vote for Sajith Premadasa to ensure his victory by defeating both Anurakumara and Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Sajith Premadasa මැතිතුමා ඇරෙන්න රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමා හරි වෙන නායකයෙක් හරි ජනාධිපති වුණා මතක තියාගන්න ඒක තමයි ශ්‍රී ලංකා රාජ්‍යයේ අවසානය
සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහත්තයා කියලා කියන්නේ
Sajith Premadasa is a leader who is committed to work for the poor. During the last 1.5 years, he granted over 1 billion rupees to schools and hospitals. We will definitely develop this country within the next 5 years and reach a higher economic level, which poses a challenge to India.
සංවර්ධනය කරනවා කියන පොරොන්දුව අපි මේ මොණරාගල ජනතාවට දෙනවා.
සමහරක් ප්‍රශ්න කරනවා.
Some raise concerns about the feasibility of my proposals. During the past 76 years, we have proven that we are able to work towards the development of the country even without power. We will implement a new pricing formula which is beneficial for both the farmers and the consumers. Additionally, we will write off the agricultural loans of the farmers.
ගොවියාගේ වගානය කපා හරිනවයි කියන එක මම මේ අවස්ථාවේ ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
Presidential candidate of the National People's Power, Anurukumara Dissanayake, promises to provide a minimum allowance of 10,000 rupees to low-income families until an NPP-led government achieves better economic stability. The NPP leader made this announcement during an election campaign rally in Kantale today.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe recently invited us, along with Sajith Premadasa, to a meeting to discuss the alignment of our policies with the IMF reforms. We will address these matters directly with the IMF. The citizens of this country will have the opportunity to approve our approach to dealing with the IMF on September 21st.
Agriculture must be a source of income. Currently, from cultivation to harvesting, farmers are burdened with debt. We will provide debt relief to the farmers of this country. Additionally, we must reduce fuel and fertilizer prices and ensure that a fair price is set. Will these changes happen overnight? No. We must work diligently for several years to achieve these goals. In the meantime, if a family is unable to afford food or medicine, or if they have disabled members, those families will receive a minimum allowance of 10,000 rupees. The presidential candidate of the Sri Lanka Podu Jana Peramuna, Namal Rajapaksa, assures that he is committed to developing the country's economy while addressing the concerns of ordinary citizens following his election to the presidency. Addressing an election campaign meeting of the SLPP, Rajapaksa stressed the need for a national tax policy which is bearable for the general public. The Mavatagama electorate meeting of the Sri Lanka Podu Jana Peramuna pledging support to the party's presidential candidate Namal Rajapaksa was held last evening. We have never taken a decision that put our country at risk. I have the responsibility and the challenge of recommencing the country's development from where former President Mahinda Rajapaksa left it. At the moment, small and medium-scale businesses are under threat. The incumbent government is following an unfair tax policy. Some criticize us when we reduce taxes during former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's tenure. However, we will hold the view that it is pivotal that the country follow a tax policy that is bearable for the public. We will develop the country's economy. Not only that, we will also address the issues of ordinary citizens. The Sri Lanka Podu Jana Peramuna is ready to develop this country's economy.
Sri Lanka Podu Jana Peramuna සූදානම් කියන එකත් මම ඔබ මුන්නාසලට මතක් කරනවා.
And with that, let's hear what politicians from across the political spectrum have to say ahead of the presidential polls.
You all know that the American embassy and the ambassador attempted to bring Sajith and Ranil together. However, Sajith Premadasa did not agree with this plan. As a result, Ranil Wickremesinghe is now removing members from Sajith's party. Thalathathu Korala has already left, and based on my information, another 5 or 6 members are likely to follow. If more members leave, Sajith's position will weaken. This situation does not benefit Ranil, but a third party, those who want to reignite a struggle. According to the constitution, the incumbent president will remain in power until the next president is elected. If there is a delay in electing the next president, the incumbent will continue to serve.
Definitely, Ranil Wickremesinghe will win the upcoming presidential election. Ranil Wickremesinghe is the only person who can resolve the economic crisis. If the experiment goes wrong, we will not be able to correct it.
On the 4th, we will release the blueprint of our economic policy. Has already released their economic policy, and Ranil Wickremesinghe is also expected to release his soon. However, no one in this country can produce a blueprint quite like ours.
අපේ blueprint එකට ගහන්න කිසිම blueprint එකක් මේ රටට කවුරුත් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්නේ නැහැ.
අපි විවේචනය කර කර හිටපුවා ඒ දේම කරන්න ඊට වඩා හොඳින් ඒක කරන්නම් කියලා තමයි දැන් බලේ ඉල්ලන්නේ. නැවත මං කියන්න මේ රට බංග්ලාදේශයක තැනට ගෙන්න එපා කියලා මං ගේ කරන්න ඉල්ලන්නේ.
Ranil Wickremesinghe believed that if he could bring SLPP members who support him to his side, then the 6.9 million people who originally supported them would also follow. However, the supporters of the SLPP are unlikely to vote for the president.
Ranil Wickremesingheට ෘතුගුණ සලකන්න ඡන්දේ දාන්න ඡන්දේ පොළට යන්නේ නැහැ.
Meanwhile, Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri assured that Sri Lanka will not accept any resolutions brought forward by the United Nations Human Rights Council regarding alleged human rights violations during the civil conflict that ended in 2009. Speaking at a press briefing today, he added that Western countries should not base their foreign policies towards Sri Lanka on vote bank politics aimed at securing the votes of the Sri Lankan diaspora residing in their nations. Meanwhile, commenting on the promises made by presidential candidates to renegotiate with the International Monetary Fund, Sabri warned that doing so could jeopardize approximately $1.3 billion in foreign exchange assistance expected in the coming months.
In
2022, the UNHRC brought a resolution against Sri Lanka, and they have submitted a report on that resolution for September this year. We have rejected that resolution. As the period for the current resolution is ending, they would need to introduce a new resolution to continue it. We intend to respond accordingly. However, it is important to state that we do not accept the UNHRC's approach. Specifically, we completely disagree with the proposal to initiate a court case in a foreign country, as mentioned in the resolution. This is against our sovereignty and the sovereignty of our legal system. Our judiciary will not allow such interference. What we are telling these foreign powers is that we have implemented internal measures to find solutions to the conflict that ended 15 years ago. That is our process. We do not appreciate external forces attempting to create divisions within our communities. The motivation behind this interference seems to be driven by electoral considerations in Western countries where Sri Lankan diasporas are a part of the electorate. This is what we call vote bank politics, and we reject the idea that these countries' foreign policies towards Sri Lanka should be influenced by such considerations.
එතකොට මේ පිට රටවල් වල ශ්‍රී ලංකාව සම්බන්ධයෙන් තියෙන විදේශ ප්‍රතිපත්තිය ඒ වෝට් බැංක් පොලිටික්ස් මත පදනම් වෙලා කරන්නට බෑ කියන එක අපි ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරනවා. ඒ සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම
ඒ වගේම අමාත්‍යතුමා අපි දැක්ක මෑතකදී ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨ අධිකරණයේ තීන්දුවක් ලබා දුන්නා පළාත් පාලන ඡන්දය නොපැවැත්වීමෙන් මානව හිමිකම් සහ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයට ගැටලුවක් ඇති වෙලා තියෙනවා කියලා. මේ වගේ දේවල් නිසා ඇත්තටම මේ රෙසොලූෂන් එකකින් බලපෑමක් ඇති වෙනව නේද?
කිසිම බලපෑමක් ඇති වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
No, it won't. The president responded to this by saying that the right to life is greater than the right to franchise. Were the citizens of a country asking for a local government election? At that time, the president had to make a choice between allocating the remaining funds for elections or focusing on economic recovery and holding the election according to the constitution. That is being done now. Furthermore, what does the Human Rights Council know about the economy? We are dealing with the IMF, World Bank, US Treasury and Japanese Foreign Ministry, who are experts on economic matters. If the Human Rights Council stays within its limits, we will cooperate with them as well.
Now there have been talks of IMF renegotiation, the deal to be renegotiated.
It took 1 year for us to agree on the DSA. So DSA has 5 parameters. 133% of the current debt should be reduced to 95% on the DSA. Then 9.3% of the current payment of the GDP, which is going for foreign loan settlement, has to be brought down to 4.5%. Then there has to be 2.1% surplus on the primary balance. 15% of the tax should be revenue out of GDP. Now you can't just change this. If that happens, IMF will not give their next tranche of 400 million in December. If they don't give, the World Bank will not give their next tranche of 400 million. And if they don't give, ADB will not give their next tranche of 500 million. So about 1.2 to 1.3 billion is in danger from December to January. Without that, the rupee will tumble, inflation will go up, and country will be unstable. So if anyone wants to try that, good luck.
And with that, here's a look at local news across the island in brief. The Supreme Court dismissed a petition challenging President Ranil Wickremesinghe's eligibility to contest the presidential election, which was based on claims of failure to appoint an acting Inspector General of Police and judges to the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal. The petitioner has been ordered to pay 50,000 rupees in court fees. Meanwhile, Nadine Basik, the son of alleged large-scale drug trafficker Shiran Basik, was arrested at the Bandaranaike International Airport in Katunayake today. Nadine Basik is the chief suspect in a hit-and-run case during a raid in Vallavatta on the 16th of February 2024, where a police special task force officer was injured. However, Nadine Basik was released on bail of 500,000 rupees after appearing before the additional magistrate of Mount Lavinia. In other local news, the Indian naval vessel INS Mumbai arrived at the port of Colombo on a formal visit. The visiting ship was welcomed by the Sri Lanka Navy in compliance with naval traditions.
Star Dishwasher Dali Hell Indul Pahasuwen Sede Star Dishwasher Magic Tub එක.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
චන්දරුසුනේ කාගෙත් මන අපේ සිග TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Welcome back. Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe today inaugurated the first phase of the Sobadanavi combined cycle power plant in Kerawalapitiya. The power plant, which is the first in Sri Lanka to utilize liquefied natural gas as its primary fuel, is expected to increase the capacity of the national grid by 350 megawatts upon completion. Addressing the inauguration ceremony, the President highlighted Sri Lanka's potential to become a centre of renewable energy generation in the Indo-Pacific region. The open cycle phase of the Sobadanavi 350 megawatt combined cycle power plant in Kerawalapitiya was inaugurated today under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Constructed by Lakdanavi Limited at a cost of $220 million, Sobadanavi is the first Sri Lankan power plant to be operated on liquefied natural gas as the primary fuel. The first phase of the plant will add 220 megawatts to the national grid, while the second phase, scheduled to be completed early next year, is expected to possess a capacity of 130 megawatts.
Lakdanavi would not have had the opportunity to construct this power plant if the electricity board was unable to pay its suppliers. The electricity board being able to pay tariffs to its suppliers is what enabled both domestic and foreign investors to invest in renewable energy projects. In 2022, management informed us that the project was unable to continue due to foreign investments being halted. However, we assured them that the President had instructed us on the process of stabilizing the economy and instructed them to continue the project under the assurance that the electricity board would be able to pay the tariffs for the power. Historically, most politicians in the opposition opposed the introduction of an electricity tariff formula and the construction of LNG power plants. However, now they have included those programs in their election promises. However, I remind you that the programs that the others have only promised are actually being implemented under the leadership of the incumbent president.
Renewable energy is the need, and the more you specialize in renewable energy, the better the chances of going out both in this continent and the African continent. We are now starting our plan of economic development. No development can take place without power. We have to now think of new sources of energy which will also fit in to the climate change policies of the world. Renewable energy will be the next area of concentration for Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka must be a surplus producer of renewable energy. And if India-Singapore power line comes into being, we've just got to get on to it. Next is green hydrogen. We have to use it, and if necessary, new laws should be brought in to allow these power plants to come up quickly. Now, once green hydrogen works, just imagine we use it in our three ports, especially Trincomalee, the closest, and Colombo. Just imagine what potential we have as a logistics center.
The Colombo bourse closed in red today as a result of price losses in counters such as Commercial Bank, Sampath Bank and Melster Corp, while the turnover crossing 732 million rupees. The benchmark all-share index closed 1.33% lower at 10,945.81 points, while the S&P Sri Lanka 20 fell by 1.68% to close at 3,096.04 points. Trading volume on the index rose to 35.1 million shares from 30.1 million in the previous session. The food, beverage and tobacco sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, while the capital goods sector came in second. Foreign investors closed as net buyers, purchasing shares worth 54.3 million rupees, while domestic investors were net sellers, offloading shares worth 728 million rupees. And up next, we have Minal Wickremege from Capital Alliance with some thoughts on the current status of the economy in our next segment, Economic Outlook.
A decline of 6.8% was observed in the total volume of secondary market transactions in both the treasury bills and treasury bill markets in the previous week. This suggests a decrease in trading activity in the secondary bond market. Taking a look at crude oil prices initially trended downward during the period from August 20th to August 23rd. However, an uptick was observed towards the end of the period on expectations of a potential rate cut by the US Federal Reserve. Overall, Brent crude prices fell by $0.27 per barrel, while WTI prices decreased by $0.93 per barrel during this period. The average weighted call money rate remains steady at 8.57% on August 23, 2024, unchanged from the end of the previous week. The all-share price index decreased by 1.24% to 11,361.66 points, while the S&P SL20 index fell by 1.42% to 3,254.05 points.
And with that, here's a look at some corporate news in brief. A collective of trade associations, including the Joint Apparel Association Forum, the Federation of Chambers of Commerce and Industry in Sri Lanka, the European Chamber of Commerce in Sri Lanka, the Exporters Association of Sri Lanka, the International Chamber of Commerce Sri Lanka and the National Chamber of Exporters are urging a reduction in water tariffs for industrial users. This comes as part of a broader effort to alleviate the financial strain on local industries and to advocate for the implementation of a cost-reflective pricing formula that ensures fair pricing for essential utilities. Meanwhile, the Securities and Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka conducted an industry awareness session dedicated to anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism. The event, which saw the attendance of over 80 industry professionals, aims to aid licensed market intermediaries in the effective implementation of measures for anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism. The session also provided an in-depth exploration of the regulatory framework applicable to AML and CFT. In other corporate news, the JTBC Media Group, a popular media group in Seoul, South Korea, arrived in Sri Lanka recently on the invitation extended by the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau and the Sri Lankan Embassy in South Korea. The Korean media group, which has wide media coverage across the world, arrived to promote the main attractions, culture and cuisine of Sri Lanka to their audience. The group will also feature Sri Lanka in their new reality program, Extreme Tour. And that's all the news for today. Thank you for joining and have a good night.